Welcome to our executive video series here at the Zero Trust Summit. We're here with Justin Wilkins, Director of Systems Engineering at Varonis. And Justin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start by asking, do you believe that federal agencies, senior executives kind of above the IT level, really have a full visibility of kind of the gaps that must be closed to achieve zero trust objectives?
So I would say no. If you look at CISA's Zero Trust guidance, they are very clear that this is a data-centric architecture focused on protecting critical data and services. So agencies have spent decades moving information from the analog world to the digital world, and they've made investments on the perimeter, things like IDS, IPS, firewalls, web security gateway, endpoint protection, but they've never really put the controls or visibility in place to identify what's going on inside of the network. So what we see when we work with organizations is that that is the single biggest gap. So every year we perform a global data risk report where we aggregate the results of thousands of risk assessments we perform across commercial and federal organizations. And in these risk assessments, we find that the average organization has 20% of their data wide open to every single user on the network. So anyone that logs into the network has access to 20% of an organization's data, 17 million files. A lot of this information contains highly sensitive data, things like PII, PHI, CUI information. They have no visibility into how users are interacting with the data, and that creates a significant risk, and it's really an impediment to beginning to move down the path to zero trust. So without visibility into the data itself and what's happening on the network, you can't begin to implement a data-centric architecture, and you're not going to be successful in building a zero trust program.
So next I'd like to ask, what do you see are the most significant technical challenges that government agencies are generally facing right now in establishing a zero trust environment?
So I want to expound on the point that I made earlier about zero trust being a data-centric architecture. So one of the biggest challenges is being able to go out and accurately identify, classify, and label all of the data that organizations hold within their environment. You cannot begin to broker just-in-time access on critical data and services without first classifying and labeling all that information. And organizations have collected hundreds of terabytes, some of them petabytes of information over time. And without the ability to automatically perform that classification, there's no real way to start that zero trust journey. So we were working with a very large civilian organization that was in the early stages of building out their zero trust program. And one of the things that they recognize is that without visibility into the data itself, they cannot begin to implement the requirements across the other pillars. So their focus was to start with the data, getting the visibility into who has access to information, doing content classification, automatically apply the labels. They were then able to institute user activity monitoring, so they're monitoring what users are doing inside their network across all those key data stores. They're then performing analytics, so now they're monitoring how data is being used, and then they're eventually going to be able to take that information and feed it into a policy enforcement point to broker those just-in-time access requests, those just-in-time decisions. So I think for me, the biggest challenge organizations face in implementing a zero trust architecture is really addressing the data pillar requirements, the CISA maturity model and the DDCO model, which is who has access to data, can I label it, can I tag it, do I have the analytics that are required to accurately inform a policy enforcement point to broker access dynamically, and that's the biggest challenge.
Makes a lot of sense, and certainly an important place to start. Justin Wilkins, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of your insights with us here at the Zero Trust Summit.
Awesome, thank you.